Afghanistan, one of the most important countries in this South Asia and Central Asia. India and Afghanistan have had a twisted relationship when it comes to bilateral cooperation and mutual ties between the two countries. However, in the recent times, efforts have been made from both the sides to change this and develop a mutual respect, a mutual love and a mutual cooperation between trade and everything else between the two countries. To understand this better, we have in our show today Dr. Abdali, Afghanistan's ambassador to India, and he would talk about the landlocked countries and the untapped potential the two countries can work together and get out of it. Welcome to the show, sir.
Pleasure to be with you.
So my first question to you would be about the Indo-Afghan trade show that we had experienced. What is the outcome of it?
Well, that was a very productive trade show between our two countries. Recently, in fact, we've been holding such exhibitions for the last few years. But every time we hold, it gets better and better because of the experience that we get, and also because of the increasingly deepening ties between our two countries in all fields, including trade. The exhibition that we recently had in ITC Moria Hotel, which was also supported by the US, our other strategic partner. So this was a three countries cooperation that resulted in having such a productive exhibition. There, over 200 Afghan companies participated, as well as companies from India and from beyond India. There were over 60 US companies participated in that exhibition. 3 days deliberations, where the Afghan...
Was there any new cooperation signed between the companies, the CEOs who met from different countries?
Yes, absolutely. Over $200 million deals were signed.
Over 200 million.
At the end of the third day of the conference or the exhibition. So it was a very productive one, and of course such trade shows will continue in both our countries. We recently also had one in Kabul. So that is the way how we do our business when it comes to trade. And there are much more that we do, not only trade, but also at the regional level, a number of initiatives. You have been witness, and we have all been witness to the launch of the Chabahar port. Yes. So that really brings India, Afghanistan much closer, and through this, the rest of the region.
Leading on that, my next question to you would be, the first consignment has already reached the Chabahar port. So what are your comments on this? What is Afghanistan expectation in general from the Chabahar port?
Well, that was a milestone. In fact, it changed the whole economic landscape of the region because, as you know, we always talk about the least connectivity of the region. And it is because of the barriers that we have among our countries, South Asia and Central Asia. Afghanistan historically been an asset for the region to bridge that gap. But of course, in the recent past, Afghanistan situation and the rest of the region's tensions that exist, unfortunately, resulted in what we see the region which is least connected. But that was a game changer, as Prime Minister Modi has always put it. Afghanistan, India and Iran together worked for almost 14 years to realize a life-changing initiative for the whole region, for the people of the entire region, South Asia and Central Asia. So that, in fact, is going to change dramatically the economic situation of the region, because this, in fact, gives the corridor for the trade to happen between Central Asia and South Asia, and that also through Afghanistan. So we, in fact, for the first time had the wheat, 15,000 metric ton wheat from India. It has already reached Afghanistan. So this was not about wheat. It is more than that. Which is to begin trade through Chabahar port between Afghanistan and India through Iran, but at the same time calling on the rest of the region to utilize this port for trade between Central Asia and South Asia. And I'm very hopeful that the rest of the region will soon join this trade hub for the businesses between their traders.
Chabahar has been labelled as a milestone by both the sides. So what kind of job creations, what are the numbers that we are looking for? Is there any specific provision for Afghan women in this?
When it comes to business, that doesn't mean we have women excluded. Women plays a very important role in our business already. In Afghanistan, hundreds of trade councils are run by women. Business run by women in Afghanistan. So when it comes to trade, we define this as a trade involving men and women in Afghanistan, and that is the case in the whole of the region. So it is going to affect very positively for the whole region, engaging the women as well, because without them, that means we will have a half realization of the potential that we have in terms of the human resource.
What about the number of job creations that we're looking forward?
Well, the more
on the Afghan side.
I mean, you see, it's going to be gradually providing the opportunity when it comes to the number of jobs.
But there must be some tentative numbers.
We are looking at lakhs of jobs to be created, millions of jobs to be created ultimately.
Skilled and unskilled.
Both, yes, absolutely. When it comes to business, it involves various skills and non-skills. So, in fact, this is a long-term vision. We are talking of the whole region. So we're not talking about only job creation in Afghanistan. We talk about job creation in Iran, we talk about job creation in India, we talk about job creation in Central Asia and the rest of South Asia. So this is going to be an initiative that is going to be affecting the whole region's life when it comes to job creation, when it comes to prosperity that will come out of this new initiative.
Is there any timeline that you're looking forward that maybe in 3 years or 7 years or whatever the timeline would be, that this would be fully functional and would reap the dividends that you're waiting for?
You see, the port in terms of the full operationalization, we are looking at 1 year when it comes to the readiness of the port, which can absorb businesses from the region, which will help then the region to utilize the port. Recently, the Indian Minister of Transport visited Iran, and there the commitment was made that this port will be fully ready within a year. So by next year, end of next year, the port will be fully operational for the business, but it has already begun. But in terms of the facilities that will be available on that port, we're looking at 1 year. So within a year time, the port will be ready, and then the businesses from the whole region will come and utilize the port for the businesses.
Could you tell us about a few Afghan companies that are looking forward to making huge investments in this?
Well, we already have land allocated for the businesses. This port land was already distributed to many traders, including Afghans. So our Afghan companies already bought land or leased land on that port. So from now on, they will be coming to install their businesses in terms of infrastructure. And not only Afghans, but from the rest of the region, from India. So this, in fact, is a new beginning of a new change in the region when it comes to trade. We are trying to provide as many alternatives as possible. Afghanistan is no longer a landlocked country as we used to call. Landlocked means that, well, you have no other access to sea or any other port. But not right now, Afghanistan has access to sea by Chabahar port, which means Afghanistan is connected to the rest of the region. We also recently had the air corridor. You may know about the air corridor that exists between Afghanistan and India, and we're also trying to expand this to the rest of Indian cities. As a matter of fact, I'm going to visit Amritsar soon to discuss how we can, also add Amritsar to this air corridor connectivity. Right now, the two capitals plus Kandahar are connected through air corridor, and currently we are looking at the expansion of this air corridor to the rest of the Indian cities like Hyderabad, like Chennai, like Amritsar. And my visit to Amritsar will be aimed at opening another door to our air corridor between Afghanistan and India.
Afghanistan and India, of course, two really important countries. Let's bring China into the equation. So, do you think the China-Pak Economic Corridor and the One Border, One Road project that they have, do you see it as a potential threat to North-South Transport Corridor?
Well, Afghanistan believes in connectivity. Afghanistan believes that the whole region should be connected by initiatives that are aimed at prosperity, not aimed at any further tension or any sort of hegemonic power for a certain particular or particular country. We are looking at the win-win initiatives for the whole region. Afghanistan has been lobbying for win-wins. For example, Afghanistan has advocated India's inclusion in the APTA, which means Afghanistan's access to Indian goods and India's goods to Afghanistan, and by exchange we give access to Pakistan, to Central Asia. So my point here is that we should not be selective in economic initiatives. We should be looking at all initiatives as acceptable, not be choosing a particular initiative when it comes to trade. So we hope that we all in fact build a trust, first of all, when it comes to businesses, and really make that concept acceptable in a sense that no country should be worried about any economic initiative which would in any way refer to any particular dispute or particular problem that is going to be created for any particular country.
But the Chabahar port and Gadwar port, there will be competition because they're just about 100 kilometers away from each other. How do you plan to deal with that? What is your
competition? Is always good. Competition means, improvement. When you look at the private sector, I personally always like privatization, which means bringing more competition between companies. And I think in the same way we should also be supporting competition between countries when it comes to ports. The better services, the more you advocate alternative, the better services will be provided by those services when it comes to business, when it comes to trade, when it comes to ports. So we're not against any particular port. We are in fact for all initiatives that are aimed at win-win and aimed at providing prosperity to everyone in the region.
But competition can also lead to threats sometimes.
That is what we mean should not happen. Look at the rest of the world, how they deal between themselves. Look at Europe. Open border, has this become threat to them, or again? It's a game. Why would we think of such connectivity to be threats to one or the other? I think the first thing to focus on would be to build trust and sell these ideas based on the trust that we should create among ourselves, that we should be looking at everyone's prosperity equally. I think the best example, as I gave, was the European Union, how they do their business. They have no borders at all. Why would we be creating barriers? Why would we be feeling threats when it comes to our ports or businesses that we open up in our region? So we should, in fact, put behind the old narrative that ports being built in the region to be meant as a threat. Rather, we should be changing this narrative and complement one another by providing those alternatives.
So we can say that Gadwar and Chabahar, so Gadwar port is the right kind of competition for Chabahar.
Absolutely. We, as I said earlier, we have to open our borders. We have to allow businesses to flourish, and not use
and follow the European model.
Use those ports in a sense of threats that some may feel. We should not be thinking in the first place when it comes to business. Business must be separate from politics. Trade and economy must be separated from any sort of tension or disputes.
So, what is the progress of the Zahedan Railway line? Do you think Indian government and Aircon International are making the right kind of progress? Is it that you would suggest to sort of speed up the process?
We do want speed. I think it took much longer than it should have taken already to realize, the connectivity to Chabahar port through rail tracks. It already took long, but never too late. At least from now on, we should try to expedite the infrastructure that is required for the port to make it really, beneficial for everyone. But I see now the sense of speed and urgency on all parties. We see urgency among all stakeholders.
Has there been enough support now from the Indian government to speed it up?
Absolutely, and I think the recent visit of the Indian Transport Minister to Iran, speaking specifically on the Chabahar port, and then putting a deadline, a year deadline to realize the port in terms of the machinery that will going to be installed, means there's urgency. And we see the same on the Iranian part. Of course, Afghanistan is always there for a speed when it comes to our business relationship. So there is much more urgency than any time before, and that's why we have already launched the port, and that's why you've seen how much we focus on further deepening this by taking more steps, which means the idea that we have right now hopefully soon be realized, that we are going to have a major business summit in Chabahar itself. That summit, that business forum will explain the potential of Chabahar that provides to the rest of the region, where businesses from the whole region will come and talk and see themselves the port, to see what provides this port when it comes to the payback, when it comes to the benefits that everybody will going to be having.
From trade, let's move to people-to-people contacts, which is, as you said, very important between two countries in order to strengthen the relationship. India houses a lot of Afghan nationals and people of Afghan origin. So there is a people-to-people contact. But do you think it is enough? Do you think we need more MOUs in the field of tourism and in the field of education so as to open up the countries, open up the people of the countries to sort of develop and strengthen and untap the potential?
I think between any countries, whether they are here or in the rest of the world, people play a very crucial role. Governments are made by people. Therefore, people in any walks of life have a very strategic stake in terms of further strengthening the relationship as compared to what they are today. Indo-Afghanistan relationship specifically has been founded by the peoples of the two countries, and therefore this relationship transcends any political change. It is beyond governments when it comes to who rules the relationship. It is the people that rule the relationship. Afghanistan has a millennia-old relationship with India. We have a civilizational ties between our two countries. And that relationship, in fact, is further strengthened day by day by the people's support. In order to strengthen this further and further, it's never enough when you talk about how deep the relationship is, which is always needed to be further deepened. When you're looking for more things to happen, in order to see that happen, we are ourselves looking at Indo-Afghan Culture Week on 29th of November. And that, in fact, is aimed at bringing our peoples much more closer than they are today. We'll be talking about the past. What was our past? We'll be talking about the current, what we are today. And we'll be talking about the future, how further we can develop this relationship. So we are inviting our artists, our culture, or prominent writers and historians to talk about how deep, how historical our relationship is, and how further we can strengthen this relationship.
What about media? Don't you think local media from both the countries and exchange of journalists between the two countries will sort of help a common man of India to understand the daily routine of a person in Afghanistan and vice versa?
Media plays a crucial role again in all walks of life, from politics to trade to anything else. In fact, I always tell our Indian friends that they focus more to gather the information by looking at themselves rather than taking it from any other source. I think media coverage and information that one needs requires, of course, more media contact as well between countries. In fact, we advocate this, and I'm very hopeful that this very forum that we have, the Culture Week, that we will be having some more media and how they will be collaborating closer between themselves. So India plays a very important role. I think we have not done enough, in fact, to communicate what is happening on the ground. Sometimes the twisted information also misleads the people. Take the example of Afghanistan. It is not all that bad that you see sometimes from...
But if you ask a common man, the first thing that comes to mind is Taliban when you hear Afghanistan.
Exactly.
And that's the process and that's the mindset that we have to change.
That is exactly what I'm referring to. In Afghanistan, there is life, there is business, there is everything as another nation has. But unfortunately, with all respect to the media also looks for negative points. So they always build on something negative. Maybe that's the nature, and perhaps can be looked at to balance both the positive and the negatives happening anywhere in the world. In Afghanistan, the positive change that we have seen, unfortunately, has not been showcased as much as the negative things, unfortunately, happening in Afghanistan. Therefore, I'm fully with you that India can play a very important role, the media, and we have to focus the media on the developments that are taking place by giving them the information as to what is happening in trade, business, in women, achievements that we have in Afghanistan. I don't see it in the media what is happening. Unfortunately, the things which I read, as you said earlier, people think about Afghanistan as a Taliban, in the context of Taliban. Taliban is a phenomena which no one likes. It is an imposed phenomena, but when it comes to the people, they have a very different lifestyle. They like modernity. In fact, the other day I was looking at a video clip by some speaker that Afghanistan in 1919 was the first country to install women the right to vote in 1919, the first country. Therefore, Afghanistan's real face has not been showcased to the world, what Afghanistan is as a nation.
There hasn't been enough done in order to showcase what Afghanistan is. We need more people-to-people contact, more journalistic contact, an overview of what Afghanistan is, more than a landlocked country and more than a Taliban province. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Tani Tikku signing off.